it's going.
All right, perfect. All right, thanks. Welcome everyone to the December Layer 7 Office Hours. Sure, we'll have a few other folks popping in as we go here, but just got a good crowd already. Today's topic, we'll be first starting off with Charles Lillenkamp from our support organization. He's going to talk about some common themes that he's seeing around performance and upgrades of gateways from a support perspective. So he'll be sharing some good insights and lessons learned that will hopefully help folks avoid some of these, I guess, what the right word is, avoid some of these potential issues that they could run into, right? And then we have Amog from our product management team. He's our product manager for the Gateway product, and he'll be talking a little bit about the some of the monthly platform patches and just an update around those. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Charles and let you take it away.
Sorry, Greg, it's actually the other way around. So it's a couple
you're
of
gonna go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. My bad. So then, okay, Amog will take it first then. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Charles. So, guys, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So, couple of announcements I quickly want to make sure you guys are aware of is there was an issue identified with a monthly platform patch which was released in October and November. So there was some issues with MySQL that was released with this patch. We have reached out to MySQL. We have received the patch which is required. We will be releasing new MPP on December 22nd, and this December MPP should resolve issues for all of the customers. So do not, at this moment, do not install October and November patches. Just directly go to December patches. They are cumulative, and you should be fine once you apply December patch. As most or all of you must have heard about the Log4j 0-day CVE, just want to provide an well, fresh out of the oven update on this one. I'm going to post out a final update today. Besides the SSOS TK, which is available with Gateway, there is no other impact that we found for API gateways. So if you see Log4j and SSOS TK, please remove that. It's safe to do so, and you should be good to go. That's the one. Links are already in the presentation. We will be sharing the presentation after the meeting as well. Okay. Any questions around these two topics? If not, one last thing I would like to remind is
Amog, if I can interrupt real quick, I just want to point out that all the other products under Layer7 family, there are mitigation steps in the KB article, and you can access it directly from that Symantec White Advisory as well.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne, for pointing that out. Sorry about that. And well, I know, I mean, patching systems are going to be a little bit slow. So can Gateway protect your backends? Meanwhile, your backends are being patched. So please check out the blog by Franco. He's our distinguished engineer from Layer7. Again, link is here. I'm going to paste the link in the chat as well later on. So have a look at the blog, post your comments, and make use of all the information available.
So Amog, can you hear me?
Yes.
So Amog, yeah, we did look at that API blog from Francisco, but I think it is just a general guideline, and I think a few of our vendors have provided the actual policy as well. Is it possible? Can you guys create a policy which looks at header and body and URLs, and maybe upload it in your GitHub or something, someplace? That would be much easier.
Sure. We'll work on that. Meanwhile, I mean, we wanted to get information out as soon as possible. It's
Yeah, right.
relatively, as you know,
Yeah.
it's a simple policy, but we'll definitely look into the samples.
Correct.
Yes, Atul.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We have a question from Philip Mead. If we perform the Log4j mitigation and then install the December patch, will the Log4j stuff come back?
No, so MPP is different than the Log4j. So MPP includes all the OS related patches, and it does not include the SSO SDK installation itself. So it should not bring back the Log4j stuff back.
Okay. And among the links that you have here, can you actually maybe post those physical links into the chat here so that folks in the call can
Yeah,
get
exactly.
those?
Exactly. I'm going to do that after my presentation.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions before we move on to the next topic?
And also, we in fact created a ticket as well, support case, and we got that feedback. So I don't know, maybe in your KB article, you can possibly mention that for the SSO SDK vulnerability that we have with layer 7, where we have to delete those jar files, log4j jar files. We had a question whether we need to restart the layer 7 process or not. Anyway, the support came back, Broadcom support came back saying we don't need to. But maybe we can update that in the KB article as well, so that because there's always a confusion whether the jar files are getting loaded in the memory, do we need to reload it, and so on and so forth. So it would be helpful if we update that in the KB article itself, that a restart of the process is not required.
Correct. Yeah. So thanks for this information. I'll get that KB article updated as well.
Thank you.
Great.
Hey,
any other questions?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yep. Go ahead. We'll turn it over to Charles, and yeah, feel free to. If you do have a question on this topic, feel free to put it back in chat, and we can come back to it at the end. After Charles' section, we'll have kind of an open Q&A as well. So, right, take it away, Charles.
Hi, my name is Charles Lillenkamp. I'm a principal support engineer. Been supporting Layer 7 products for a while. Some of the names look familiar here to me. I created some slides in regards to, I don't know, common themes we see in support regarding going to Gateway 10. A lot of people are very familiar with Gateway 9, and some of the processes have slightly changed, so I'm going to be covering some of those changes. I have a number of slides, so feel free to stop me at any slide if you have any questions regarding the content I'm presenting. So one of the things we see frequently is a lot of people measuring the performance of Gateway 10 versus Gateway 9. We have noted the best performance, or we've done performance tests with most of our customers in this 10.0 CR4 and 10.1. Prior to CR4, we had a DE, which is this DE 502548, which we resolved some MySQL performance issue. That is included in the 10.0 CR4 and 10.1. Is noted in our documentation. It's in the resolved issues part of it. One of the characteristics that I happen to notice on those cases is MySQL host, whether it be a remote host or a local OVA MySQL DB, Netstat will show a large amount of connections to MySQL, even though MySQL's show process list may not show any real activity there. So I think the guidance is always to go to the latest and greatest, but it's really important to be at 10.1 or 10.0 CR4 for people that are just starting their upgrades. Any questions regarding that at all?
Yeah, so Charles, like if we are using 10.0, maybe CR3, and if you're using a software version form factor with a MySQL version of 8.0.21, do you think we might run into any issues?
I think you'd benefit from it, right? So if you're currently at a lower CR and you're not noticing issues, you're already at that lower level. So in your plans to go to 10.0 CR4 10.1, you may see a nice boost in performance, right? The form factor didn't seem to make a difference here from my recollection.
Right. No, the only reason I mentioned the form factor is because we are already using MySQL with version 8.0. So I don't know, was there a different MySQL version for versions below than 10.0 CR4?
No, there wasn't a lower version than MySQL 8. I believe,
Okay.
and I don't want to misspeak, but I believe that there was a code change in regards to how we were obtaining the connection with the MySQL JDBC driver, right, with the built-in for the database itself. But like I said, if you're already using it and you're not noticing the impact, when you do get to upgrade, and you may want to make that in your plans, you may see a nice boost in performance.
Okay.
Hey, this
Thank you.
is Kishore. Got a quick question. So you mentioned about various performance studies. Is there any KB article, or we are looking to upgrade to 10.1? Is there any KB article or anything which captures this?
All of this, no, but this whole presentation is going to be uploaded. I could make a global. There's, I think, going to be about 12 or 15 slides. I could make a big one, but using this presentation as a guideline is probably going to be very helpful for you.
I guess my question was about the performance analysis. Is there any article that talks about performance differences, or you mentioned about going through with several of your partners on performance testing?
Yeah, a lot of them have their internal tests that they have run, and most of them, when they went to the CR4 or 10.1 version, saw a equal performance to what they were getting in 9, if not slightly better.
Okay, thank you.
But the testing varies, right? We do internal testing, but depending on use case, depending on how people configure their gateway, what their policies do, it's hard to spec that out for every instance.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to move to the next one, which I tried to keep my slides grouped by logical area. Along with that performance statement, Gateway 10 in its entirety, which means 10x all CRs and 10.1, has a different garbage collection than we used to have and that people are running in 9x. The old garbage collection, or old parallel, is what you would have had in 9x. There are varying times where people in 10 go back to the version in 9, but not everybody does. The key difference that I've noted in this, and we had a lot of initial questions about, is that in 9x, when you would start your gateway process, you would see a very specific amount of memory. Let's say your max JVM heap would be 8 gigs, but when the gateway started, only 2 gigs were allocated. In 10x, all 8 gig of those are allocated right up front, right? So instead of the Java process being small and growing over time, the Java process is large as soon as you start the gateway. So people want to know why there's higher memory usage even though it's not in use. We find, or I found with customers that seem to use policies or a gateway that with larger payloads, and especially auditing of larger payloads like requests and responses, the old parallel tends to work better. That's what I've seen so far. But the confusion for people mostly starts with the fact that they feel their gateway is running hot or high on memory because as soon as they start it, all this memory is allocated that may or may not ever be used. Conceptually, that's a good thing, meaning it's cheaper to pre-allocate something and use it when it's already been blocked than requesting blocks over and over. But there's no one is better than the other. It just depends on how you use the gateway. Does that make sense?
Yes, Charles, and I think we had some experience with this in our environment, and what we have seen is primarily the SSL-related transactions, where if they are heavy on a particular gateway node, that gateway node used to contribute a lot on the GC collection times. And so is there I don't know, maybe I have seen your documentation that you have mentioned about the minimum memory that you can allocate for the gateway process, but is there any guideline of what is the maximum memory we can allocate considering GC? Is it sound enough that we allocate 32 GB to a gateway process, but would it cause any problems from the GC standpoint, that it will take longer for GC collection, garbage collection?
I don't think there is a maximum. I don't know that I would know the answer to that right off the bat. That's something that
Okay.
someone else may know or may get back to you about. I do know, since Gateway uses, most people may know this, that the Gateway typically uses half of the operating system's memory. If it's an OVA or if it's a software install, obviously you're configuring it. Do know I look at customer logs where they have 64 gigs allocated to the OS and the gateway has 32 gig. And I don't know of any performance issues. So I don't know that having large memory is been indicated any sort of issue from my review, from support standpoint.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Yeah, because we have seen the times when the GC collection happens, the gateway goes into a non-responsive mode. It doesn't process any traffic at that time. And as the GC collection time increases, if it goes say 2 seconds, 3 seconds, that's when we run into troubles with the production environment.
Yeah, you don't want to have too many long pauses for sure.
Right. But yeah, good. I think this is good information to share.
Okay, good. All right. If there's nothing else, I'll just jump to the next slide. Gateway 10 patching. Of the two, 10.0 and 10.1, 10.0 was made as a very skinny image. Most people that have 10.0 probably have seen that they want to add disk space right out of the box to the OVA. That is something that has been fixed or changed in 10.1 to make it less skinny. I think originally the thought was keeping it skinny for people that were going to be running in off non-OVA environments, AMIs and Azure, because a similar image is around, but we've deemed that for patching purposes, you really need to take and increase the disk space on 10.0. So it is in our pages, how to increase the disk space. Many people may have done that already, but that is definitely one of the first steps when you're standing up your new 10.0 gateways that you probably want to do. And as along with why security or monthly platform patches are important, noticed originally a lot of people were putting 10.0 on, and this was pre-10.1 of course, and when they put 10.0 on, the monthly platform patch was not being done as one of the early steps. It is very good to, or actually extremely important to make sure you put a monthly platform patch on, in my opinion. As Amag said earlier, preferably at this point, you want to wait and put December's on. But if you're standing up new OVAs, putting a current monthly platform patch on is extremely important. another service metrics item. Along with the MySQL update, which was noted from a from the earlier slide, in our CR1, we introduced a new cluster-wide property. That cluster-wide property is service usage update interval. The default of that when they introduced it was 5 minutes. The effect of that was customers and all of us in general were used to seeing service metrics update frequently, like 5 seconds. So when you have such a long span, the updating of service metrics can make it look like one node is taking all the traffic, or it can make it look on the dashboard not as we were used to. The reason this was introduced, though, is for some of our bigger environments where boxes are taking lots and lots of traffic. The service usage is kind of a heavy process. So two things have changed on that. One is it can be off-boxed completely similar to audits. Another is this new cluster-wide property, which does the updates a lot less frequently, saving you I/O. But then if you're heavily reliant on the gateway dashboard, the data you're used to looking at may not look the same. If you're used to looking at that dashboard and you want it to look right, the knowledge base article in here indicates changing this cluster-wide property to a lower value. But that is something that's definitely changed since the earlier versions. I'm just going to take a logical breakpoint and see if there were any questions about the last couple of slides before I move on. Good so far? Okay. Gateway 10 replication. In 9x and 10x, replication has changed quite a bit as under the covers with using MySQL GTID replication. Many of the replication processes have changed some. So people that have especially internal articles that are copies of the old knowledge base in regards to how to reset replication, they should take a look at the article, which I believe the article number itself has not changed, but the content has. And they should be performing, there's one new step in the Gateway 10 process. So if you have older documentation and you're moving over, and it's internal documentation, you should revisit it and make sure it gets updated. I'm going to stop for a second because I saw a message from somebody. Greg, can you read me what that question was?
Yeah, back to the previous slide. The question is if they're forwarding service metrics like the Splunk, I guess the question is, does this property impact that as well? Right? You see the same effect as the dashboard with Splunk as they are.
Off-boxing service metrics, I do not believe the update interval makes a difference because it's not us doing the refresh for you in the dashboard, right? Like the dashboard never reflects Splunk, so if it's an off-box configuration, I don't believe that cluster-wide property is used or needed. Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Okay, cool. I saw a little pop-up.
Yeah, he
I apologize, guys. I don't want to get out of full screen on my my presentation. Okay. Replication continued. I think I have a couple of slides on it. In late 9x, we had a couple of KBs about removing certain tables from replication. I have been under the rule of thumb of the knowledge article talks about service metrics, and it is an article that's existed since 9x, but I don't think a lot of people implemented it. It's completely valid in 10x and probably more important. I also like to remove from replication audits personally. I think this is a challenge based on concepts of what you actually need if a failover occurs. If a failover occurs, that means you're moving from your primary database and going to your secondary database. So that failure scenario should be fairly low. The fact that you have to ask yourself, is it extremely important that I have either service metric data or audit data if you're using audits in that other environment? Because those two objects take and probably account for most database I/O, and that's why we suggest in production not using audits at all. So I like to say, if you don't think you'll need those in the case of emergency, you probably save a lot of upfront processing power by excluding those from being copied over the wire. But I find that replication works better with these excluded, so I bring this up. Another MySQL configuration item with 10x that we didn't see so much in the lower versions, MySQL 5.7. MySQL 8 has very specific times that it clears bin logs. 5x, I didn't note that MySQL would really clear bin logs in most times. So in the myCNF, there's a directive saying a expiration time in seconds for your bin logs. This causes them to be cleaned up on boot. A lot of customers are still running manage bin logs though, which is a script that we provide, which means you have two entities trying to perform the same thing, and those entities can be in conflict. So the suggestion that I would have is to allow one or the other, and I personally prefer the manage bin log script and setting this to 0 on MySQL, but you probably don't want to have two different things performing the same action on the system. And this one is related to MySQL 8 as well. A number of customers and people have gotten into the habit of letting audits grow, especially in lower environments, and then just truncating the table when they needed to. In MySQL 8, simply truncating does not update its internal stats tables. So people used to the old knowledge base of doing just a truncate are confused as to why the database still seems full as far as the gateway is concerned. There is a new analyze step, which, similar to replication, you should refresh any internal documentation. But there's a new analyze step that will force the MySQL tables, MySQL dot, to be more consistent with the actual disk space with the deletion of, because files per table in MySQL will automatically clear up the space, but MySQL won't automatically know that that space is available. So there's a new KB regarding that. Any questions so far? Gotta go with the good. In Gateway 10.0 CR1, so 10x CR1 and above. So 10.0 CR1 to CR4 and 10.1. The only one that didn't have this was Gateway 10.0 base. There is a JSON schema v2 deprecation because of a Jackson library upgrade. Strongly suggests, especially if you're going to 10.1, that if you have any JSON schema assertions, that the content of that assertion, the content of the JSON and the compiler be chosen to be v4. Something I don't have in here is even with our portal integration, you need to ensure that you upgrade the portal integration at this 10.0 CR1 as well. There is no way to revert that Jackson upgrade. So the best practice is definitely to ensure that you don't have v2 content, and if you do, to convert it prior to going to the newer version. Well, this is something I've seen a little bit. In the newer versions, 10.0 CR3 and above, TLS1X and especially SSL v3 Hello has been removed. I have seen where customers have the ability to, with a legacy app, negotiate to TLS1.2, but they use like a SSL v3 or SSL v2 client Hello, which just gets rejected because that ability is not in the gateway anymore. TLS 1011, that can be re-enabled. In 10.1, there's actually a new file to do it called SSG Security. It's a new and good way to be able to override the Java security without actually having to touch the Java security. It is documented, but when you're going to the 10.0 CR3 versions and above, you want to really make sure your legacy apps, or make sure all your apps can negotiate. And this is actually my last item, so I guess I'm running fast, but many of you, if not all, are probably familiar with a DCT tool. But some of the useful items for opening a support case are listed here, right? An exact error or exact problem, like what you're seeing and what you expect to see. If it's a specific error, maybe even a screenshot of it is sometimes useful, or cut and paste. If it's something that's easily, when I do this, I get this from my policy, which is unexpected. Having a copy of the policy, as well as any of the dependencies of that, like the encapsulated assertions, gotta go back one, are super useful, because I personally will use those very frequently. When I'm making a scaled down version of a policy of a customer's, I tend to prefer, unless it's really required, to just take and have a copy of the request or response, depending on what's exposing the issue. And I typically like to try and incorporate that into my policy, right? Instead of me having to give a postman collection to somebody, or a bunch of details like that, if I can put a context variable for requests and put my body in there and a couple of add headers in my policy, so that all you have to do is hit it from a browser to expose what I say is not expected, that's usually really helpful, because it's really compact. And as mentioned, the DCT tool is super important, especially for performance issues, less so for these policy-related issues. Can't tell you how many things a DCT tool has and how many of the different things I look at based on the problem reported. I know it's a bit heavy, like a DCT tool is a lot more data than you would sometimes want to upload, but it really can be valuable for us. That is all I had for this presentation. Does anybody have any questions about anything covered, or anything else that may not have been covered that... Did we deprecate TLS 1.2? Don't recall. Hang on, let's go back. Don't think so. As far as I know, in 10.1, we only deprecated up to TLS 1.0 and 1.1. Well, let's find out.
It does recommend 1, 2, and higher. I don't know if Amog is.
Yeah, I don't know
with
for
his head?
Mogs. There, I don't remember if 1.2 is
No, 1.2 is
deprecated.
not
It's not
deprecated.
removed
It's
for
just
sure.
yeah, 1.0 and 1.1.
Yeah. Okay. Apologies, that's my bad slide making.
All right. Any other questions? And yeah, we can, questions on the content presented so far, or if you have totally independent questions, right? We can open it up now, kind of for a open Q&A. And yeah, sorry for the scare there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yep, so if there's anything else on your mind that we didn't cover, now's a great time to ask those questions. If there are none, then we can end a little early. That's fine too. All right, I'll give it just another minute so if someone's being shy or thinking of a question. But so definitely appreciate everyone's attendance here. Hopefully this content was useful. I think definitely some very insightful information there, and hopefully that will help you at least understand why you may be seeing something you're seeing, or prevent you from seeing something you didn't expect to see. So hopefully this was useful. So yeah, well, as I mentioned earlier, the recording of this will be posted out onto the community site afterwards. And yeah, let's pause again, just one last chance. If there are any other questions, go ahead and pass those along now. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap it. All right, sounds like there's no more questions. So again, thanks everyone. I hope you all have a great holiday. Hopefully you get to get a little bit of time off if Log4j isn't occupying your holidays here. But otherwise, have a great time, and we'll see you again back in January for the next session of office hours. Thanks everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Everyone, bye now.